In the early 1970s, Ted Bundy was the picture of promise: handsome, articulate, ambitious. He studied law, volunteered in politics, and smiled with effortless confidence. But behind those clear blue eyes hid something far darker. Bundy wasn't just living a double life, he was constructing one. To friends, he was charming. To women, magnetic. Yet under the surface, rage simmered. A need to control, to dominate, to destroy. It began with disappearances across Seattle and its suburbs. Young women vanished without a trace. College students, secretaries, ordinary girls. Their only connection? A polite stranger in a cast asking for help. He called himself Ted. The perfect mask of normalcy allowed him to hunt in plain sight. Evil didn't come with fangs or bloodshot eyes. It came with a smile, a cast, and the softest voice you could imagine.
1974 was the year fear took form. In Washington state, women began vanishing in broad daylight from libraries, dormitories, and crowded parks. Their disappearances made no sense. There were no signs of struggle, no witnesses, no bodies. Then came the key link. Witnesses recalled a charming man with dark hair, wearing a fake arm cast, asking for help loading a sailboat. His name, he said, was Ted. On July 14, 1974, at Lake Sammamish State Park, two young women disappeared within hours of each other, Janice Ott and Denise Nasland. Dozens saw them leave with that same man. For detectives, a pattern was emerging, a predator who used politeness as a weapon. Police circulated sketches and descriptions, and thousands called in tips. But Ted Bundy was already miles ahead, changing cities, changing cars, changing names. The hunt had begun, and the killer was winning.
Elizabeth Klopfer had fallen in love with Ted Bundy, the man, not the monster. He was attentive, intelligent, and deeply affectionate. But small details began to whisper the truth. Strange items in his car, a plaster cast he never seemed to need, and nights when he vanished without explanation. When police sketches of the Lake Sammamish suspect hit the news, her heart froze. The face was Ted's, unmistakable. Trembling, she called the police. She told them everything: his mood swings, his late-night drives, his obsession with crime reports. But Bundy's charm was impenetrable. To the world, he was innocent. To her, he was transforming into something unrecognizable. When police interviewed him, he was calm and cooperative, even flirtatious. They let him go, and Elizabeth was left in a nightmare, lying beside a man she feared might be killing strangers.
In August 1975, Bundy's arrogance caught up with him. A Utah patrol officer noticed a tan Volkswagen driving slowly through a dark neighborhood. Inside sat Ted Bundy, calm, polite, and charming as ever. But when officers searched the car, they found masks, handcuffs, a crowbar, rope, and gloves. It looked less like a student's belongings and more like a killer's toolkit. Bundy denied everything with disarming ease, claiming he was simply a thief. Yet his name now appeared in multiple ongoing investigations across several states. Detectives linked him to missing women in Washington, Oregon, Utah, and Colorado. Still, Bundy seemed untouchable. He was articulate, confident, and manipulative, even behind bars. But the facade was beginning to crack. The perfect mask was slipping, and beneath it was something cold, calculated, and inhuman.
Most killers fear capture. Ted Bundy treated it like a challenge. In June 1977, during a court recess in Colorado, Bundy was left alone to study his case in a second-floor library. Guards turned their backs for just a moment, and he was gone. He jumped out a window and disappeared into the mountains. 6 days later, they caught him again. But prison couldn't hold his ego. That December, he starved himself thin enough to crawl through a hole in his cell ceiling. He stole clothes from the warden's quarters and walked right out the front door. For weeks, he traveled undetected, charming, smiling, blending in. America's most notorious killer was loose again, free to hunt. And he wasn't done.
In January 1978, Bundy resurfaced in Tallahassee under a stolen identity. But the hunger inside him had grown unbearable. On January 15th, he broke into the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State University. What followed was sheer horror. 2 women murdered, 2 more beaten and left for dead. Days later, Bundy abducted 12-year-old Kimberly Leach, his final victim. The killings shocked America. When police stopped his car in Pensacola, Bundy smiled calmly and said, "I guess you got me." Behind that smile was a trail of devastation spanning 7 states. The killer who'd once hidden behind charm was finally unmasked, not as a misunderstood man, but as a predator who'd made deception his art form.
Ted Bundy's trial became America's obsession. Cameras filled the courtroom, and millions watched as he defended himself, charming reporters, smiling at jurors, flirting with witnesses. He relished the attention, basking in the spotlight. But charisma couldn't outshine the evidence. Bite marks matched his teeth. Eyewitnesses placed him at scenes. Fibers and fingerprints sealed his guilt. On July 24, 1979, Bundy was found guilty and sentenced to death. Still, he smiled, as though fame, even in infamy, was victory. He had manipulated everyone, the law, the media, and even his audience. For Bundy, murder was never just about death. It was about control. And now, he'd lost it forever.
For a decade on death row, Ted Bundy became a study in darkness. Psychologists and journalists sought to understand him, but Bundy never gave the truth freely. He confessed to 30 murders, hinting at many more. His charm never faded. Even in chains, he manipulated, controlled, deceived. On January 24, 1989, he faced the electric chair. Outside the prison, crowds cheered, waving signs that read, "Burn, Bundy, burn." But inside, he remained calm, polite to the end. His last words, "Give my love to my family and friends." Then, silence. Bundy's death ended his reign, but not his influence. He changed how America understood evil, not as a monster lurking in the dark, but as the man next door, a man who could smile, help you with your groceries, and end your life without a flicker of remorse.
This was Ted Bundy, proof that true evil doesn't hide in the shadows. It shakes your hand, looks you in the eye, and smiles.